This is season 8, episode 32, number 339 of the Decoded podcast. The on ramp wasn't, well, I came into this thinking we should probably have a pretty short on ramp because I was relatively on time today. But no, I think maybe we're getting into a space where the on ramp, we have a special envelope for it and there's a time around it and we fill that time whether we're early or not. I don't know. I'm just saying it out loud. Rochelle's with us. Good morning, Rochelle.
Boom. Good morning, Rochelle.
Rochelle, this new Yeti mug that I have. I was hoping you'd be here, Rochelle, because you work with a teacher who's getting married soon, and she had this I don't know what to call it, auction or something. I don't know what to call it, but her and her partner got all these packages together and then did selling the tickets, then raffle off. Anyway, I won the coffee thing. Chris knows about the coffee ensemble, and this is one of the things I won in the coffee ensemble. So I decided I would drink my coffee out of this today, and I really like this as like a general everyday use kind of mug. So the coffee's good today because I found a formula that works in this thing. So I'm enjoying the coffee today. So Rochelle, that's a connection to you. Yes, thank you. I'm a big winner. I'm a big winner in life in general. And then we got Gary. Gary's with us. Good morning, Gary.
Morning, Gary.
Gary, for some reason this morning, I was thinking of you. I hope you were feeling the positive vibes. I'm craving bagels. And so I thought of Gary because Gary does a drive to go get good bagels. So this is me today, man. I got my coffee in my winning mug. I'm thinking of bagels. It's the Decoded Podcast 339. That's what's going on this morning.
I just love that you have. I love that you have a chartreuse mug.
Chartreuse mug.
I just relearned those colors: chartreuse and puce.
I like it. It's different for me.
Yeah, you're rocking it's not quite mint green. It's kind of like yellowy green, kinda.
The best is I got two of them, and I think one of them is going to live at school. One of them is going to be my school desk drinking thing. I think.
Yeah, that's pretty odd. That's pretty trendy. It's like teacher trend right now. It's like when lanyards came in, all of a sudden everyone need to have some sort of a lanyard. Now we got the Yeti mugs. Stanley hasn't stayed very well. I think it's like Snapchat or Facebook, right? I think Stanley kind of fell the way of kind of the kids, I think. And I think the Yetis became like the teachers. So Yeti's like the Facebook of the portable tumbler world.
This talk has me thinking of two things. The first one is I was feeling edgy the other day at work, and I was spitting out one-liners at kids for all of period 3. And one of my one-liners, kid comes in. She wasn't being very polite. She wasn't being very nice. So I shot back with, she had the biggest Stanley Cup I've ever seen. She sat down, she put her thing down. It was huge. And I said to her, do you leave any water for the rest of us? Even filling that thing's going to take half an hour. She just gave me this look, and I said, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to look over your notes, and I'm going to give you your test. And I walked away. That was my chirp at the kid, right? Because what else am I supposed to do? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, man, I got to tell you how grateful I am for the job that I have, because I heard some rumors this week that we had a position at our school that was open to cross-panel transfer, and there were 14 people interviewing for it. So I was again, I don't know if any of this is true, but it was a great moment of I did one of these, I'm here, I made it. You know what I mean? I don't know why that came to mind. I just felt like sharing it with you. So a little bit of gratitude attached to a little bit of snarkiness. And here we are at the Decoded Podcast. 339.
339. I'd love to. So there's some stuff I do want to chat about, but I want to flip it out at all. Flip it out at all. Let me take a sip, see if I can clear my freaking brain.
339 is coming at you with some confusion this morning.
There we go. I like how you brought me back. Rewind the tape. I'd be curious, as we come to the end of the season, something to take of note, that June is the last month of season 8. And then we move into season, well, it depends on how you look at it. We do summer school if we can drop in, and then September will be season 9. So somewhere around in the mid 340s, late 340s, we'll be in there. But I am curious, to our ardent listeners out there, viewers, if you got us flowing right now on YouTube, if there's anything that they wanted to talk about, anything that's kind of popping right now, topics just to kind of throw in here while you're thinking about that. This last week has been an exercise in maintaining self-control. I've had several moments where I'm in possession of information as a third party to an incident or an event. And as I'm listening to person A recount why a decision path has been made, I can hear in their story that they're missing information, but a decision has been made. And then, a little bit later, a little bit before that, I will hear, or I have heard, or I am hearing person B's part of it. And I realize even they don't have all the information, but a decision line has been made and they're moving on it. And I've had to really take a second to pull up and not fill in the blanks. So in one case, it was an administrator telling me, ultimately why a decision was made. And on the other hand, a teacher sort of talking something through. And, it's not exactly triangulation, because I have the connective tissue is that, there was it's sort of focused around a student that I'm working with. So I guess I have stake in it, but I had to pull up because I think there would have been a time where I would have readily clarified and said, well, did you know that? And I would have filled in the blank, or what I perceive to be a blank. But I stopped. And I'm still trying to parse out why I just let them each play out. At the heart of it, no extra harm by their decision making is coming to the student. But I did sit there and have this kind of reactive gut thing. I'm like, I had to gut punch myself just to knock my own wind out, because I was like, I'm like, oh no, I don't know. I'm not quite sure why I took a pause. Excuse me. So I would say in this particular case, in this case that I'm sort of, circling around, it is contentious because it involves behaviors at school. It involves an incident in a class. It involves parents and the way that they are supporting the kid and the way that they're supporting the school. It involves interactions between the student and other students broadly. So it's got a lot of really kind of prickly parts to it. And did I mention we're in the last few weeks of June, right? So this thing's popping up now. But it was fascinating to me that my brain said, hold up, don't fill in the blanks for these people. Don't fill in the blanks. So this is kind of, I guess, a two-parter. Topic 1, when you're in that moment of having more information than others and you're listening to them kind of recount a thing. So there's that, and how that kind of affects you and, your thought process as far as let's say a student successful practitioner? What do you kind of do with that? Your compulsion to correct, or just fill in the blanks for people. Then the other part is a little bit more ethereal, because I'm still haven't figured out why I didn't do that. But the fact that I didn't is remarkable to me, because that's a new behavior. Had the compulsion, didn't. I didn't add in their blanks. I just listened. And then I sit with that other part, like, why didn't I? Like, why didn't I sort of like clarify to them? My starting point is that I thought there was something that occurred in both of the conversations that made me think that just because I had more information than them, that it wasn't all the information, that I still need to do some more research and investigation on my own before because in sort of filling in the blank, I risk being asked, well, what's your opinion on this? So you fill in their blanks. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? And then there's that next step where I might sort of give more information, my thoughts about that. And really, my preference is for them to kind of put their things in motion, and then I can sort of do my own thing. I don't have to be tied to their investigation, tied to their sort of experience. So I don't know if I've said to Gary or Rochelle, so I'm a special education resource teacher or a CERT in a public high school, York Region. And I'm constantly in this state of trying to help students help themselves, unwind complicated situations, social situations, academic situations, help support their growth, help support their family. I have a very fluid practice where I'm constantly in contact with the parents, and I've kind of figured out a way to do that that isn't a heavy load on me, because it can be. I have digital tools. I just have a lot of great things at my disposal and methods that allow me to stay in contact. So I have clarity with the families. In this particular case, though, I can feel like this particular situation is going to become way more complicated before it actually gets to a satisfactory space. And for a lot of reasons, aside from the fact that we have 3 weeks left of class, I think we're just in a space where new things have kind of popped up that a whole bunch of people suspected were a part of this, but nothing's been directly done about it. So then beginning the play. So you go from like this kind of one note understanding of the kid and their experience at school, and all of a sudden it gets compartmentalized, and those, like, the one turns into 4 plans, and each one of those 4 plans expands to take up as much space as that. It's like when you buy you ever bought anything vacuum packed before, vacuum sealed, right? The whole ND or any of that. You buy one of those memory foam mattresses, and it shows up in this super teeny tiny burrito sized package. You lift it up like, holy shit, this weighs 200 pounds. It's about this big. And then you cut the side of it and it goes, and it just, that's what this is happening with this. The exoskeleton on it was so rigid, and something has cracked it. And now we have this, in the innards are kind of expanding to fill a space larger than what's actually seemingly possible. So I didn't fill in the blanks. I didn't clarify them. I resisted. And then afterwards, I'm still trying to I still believe I made the right decision. So I have the sense that I made the right decision, but I'm still not quite sure why I made that decision. I went on pure instinct, because I literally gut punched myself. Like, I was about to say something, and I'm like, I wasn't rushed for time. I wasn't bothered. I wasn't hungry, angry, lonely. I wasn't sort of agitated. I just didn't. So that's a late week observation. And I know many teachers are in this situation where you're in possession of information. I think many teachers give it up. They just kind of say it all. Here you go, take it. Here's all the information. Go ahead. But something in me said, pull up. Don't give everything right now.
So the first thing is that Rochelle and Gary did not fight over who was going to get out their information first. So nothing from them. I shouldn't joke, because I don't want them to not come back because I'm being a jerk. I was hoping that they would provide us with a path, but they've not, and that's fine. They don't have to. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I hear you. And as you were explaining the situation and asking the question, kind of how I would operate from a student success lens. And I'd love to hear Gary's perspective on this from a student success lens, but also I welcome Rochelle's and anybody else's as an educator who experiences this daily. Daily. I was like thinking about the relationships I've built with certain people and them getting used to my style of instruction. So it was really cool as you were explaining, as you were talking about this. I was thinking, I've built some really cool relationships where a student now, when I'm in the room and I'm working with them, they know how I roll. So the low hanging fruit questions they used to start with and the way I dismissed those or dismantled them or accommodated them, whatever I did with that, and the pattern that I've demonstrated over time, they now know how I operate. And so it works. Like there seems to be something that's working well in those situations. But then there's the flip side of that. And there's other kids that just, they come in and they don't want to do anything and there's something broken because even the times where I have given them the answers, so to speak, they don't do anything with them, which has led me to a place of, why are you even here? Oh, like, welcome back. It's good to see you. I'll sign you in. I'll call your teacher and let them know you're here. But the pattern is you don't do anything in here.
Mhm.
And I've tried different strategies with you and you still won't do anything in here. So why are you here? And if you're really not going to do anything, I'm sending you back. So um you got me reflecting, but mostly now I do pull away. I do pull away because in that one-to-one moment in the world that we live in, people are starting to lose the appetite to think critically. Sorry, in my context, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing people, kids losing the appetite for critical thinking. They want answers. They want the technology to give them not even just answers, ideas, pathways. They don't want to do anything more with it, is what I've seen this year. So I pull away. And I do my best to prompt, to scaffold as much as I can, but some people just don't. Bro, some people you give them exactly what they're asking for and they still do nothing with it.
Mhm.
So I've seen a continuum. Someone who comes in raring, roaring to go. Oh, Rochelle just said she wouldn't even limit this to the kids. I agree 100%. If you want to, thank you for that. If you want to bump it up, it's not even just the kids. You dropped the bomb, bro. I'm sitting in the back seat of your car going for ice cream and you just tossed it back at me. And it's exploded. I don't know what else to do with it.
Hmm.
But I've said my piece. I see this. I see this. And man, it's like, it seems, if you look at the school year, it seems worse now. Right at the end, people are having a hard time holding on to the end. I'm feeling a little bit too, like I'm looking forward to getting this month out of the way. And I don't like that feeling. I don't want time to pass like that, but I'm finished. Like, I'd like to have my summer break now. And I feel like I can say that here because I know on Monday I'll turn it on and I'll go and I'll do what I'm supposed to do, but I'd like it to end now. Um, but I'm seeing kids that are just like, I'm like, you got a few more things to do. What can I do to support you with that? And they're like, man, Mr. C, I got nothing left. I'm like, you're going to have to dig deep and find it. You do not throw away your credit. You've come all this way. Get that credit. What can I do? And they usually don't know what so then I give them, I propose I'm going to do this, but then that means you have to do this and this. They're like, okay. And will they do what they say? Will they do what I tell them is assigned to them? I don't know. But I can't control that. I can just control what I can do. And I tell my kids that too. I'm like, this is what's in my control. I can do this. Or you'll any teacher would appreciate this. I'll say, "Oh, I know Clough. I know that teacher, and I'm telling you right now, this is what we need to do to have that teacher jump on board." Then they kind of look at me like, "You know something I don't?" I'm like, "Actually, I think I figured something out about this one individual. If we operate in XYZ, this person will jump on board and support you. But if we don't operate that way, I can tell you right now, there's no point in going back to class. You're not getting that credit. No matter what happens, no matter what's going to come of this teacher if they don't play ball, you're not getting that credit. I can tell you that now. That's how strong that person operates inside of a school. It's kind of neat. Gary says he's been thinking lately about how student support operates within their school and other schools within our board, and what I can learn to improve in the way I work. Gary, I love that, and whatever you learn, I'd love to jump on board. In fact, one of the people I work with knows that I communicate with you often, that like you're like my mentor, but you're also my friend. And the other day something happened and we were laughing and I said, "I'm telling Gary." And then they laughed too, because they're learners. They're like, "Well, how would Gary deal with this? What would happen at Gary's school in this situation?" I'm like, "Great question. I don't know." But I'm with you on that, Gary. And Gary says this would include when Gary's voice is needed and when it's not.
I find you sparked me. You caught my attention with that phrase around throwing away a credit. This whole ramping up season is bullshit. I hate it. I hate it not because it exists in a mindset. I hate it because we promote it as such. That's what I have a problem with. It's the end of the semester to the nth degree because it's the end of the school year. And it's funny, as the thing that caught my attention about what you said is this phrase that sometimes is said to students about throwing away their credit, or the don't stop now kind of mindset. Because I find generally speaking, philosophically speaking, I am so fine with kids running out of steam. I'm so fine with kids not delivering according to the system's expectations or the adults' expectations. I am so fine with having these little blips of reminders that the humans in front of us are the actual system, not the school board. That, and where they are at, the board barely dips their toe into their realities. The expectation is that the kids follow the plan and the schedule, right? Get it done between the bells, get it done. Summer's coming up. We hang summer at such a high value that we sort of are constantly telling the kids that your success is sort of dependent on your sense of success, aka your worth, is hung on the fact that you can complete this semester well. And because it's the second semester, it's electrified beyond its actual kind of capacity to hold the charge. And as you were saying those words, I've said them myself before. And again, I had this like allergic reaction that surprises me because I'm actually okay if kids stop working. Now, there's lots, I would have to do another episode to clarify why I'm okay with that. But fundamentally, what rarely happens, and the system is not set up for this, what rarely happens is a student successful conversation around what would it be like if you pulled up with a month left and then you kind of just focused on being okay, whatever that looks like. Um, and again, I'm pie in the sky in this kind of moment, but it reminds me it reminds me of a conversation that I had a couple different times, when I was doing alt ed, where we were looking at a kid's capacity to close. So we're getting to the end of the semester, and the kid is starting to flag, like they're done, like they're done, and we have that phrase as well in air quotes, "I'm done." And you see it in some kids, deeper and harder in some than others. But we all know this moment, or we've heard somebody say, "I'm just done. I'm so done. I'm about to be done." This threatening kind of like reaching probably their 65%, not realizing they still have a little bit more in the tank, but they're reaching their limit. So noticing this in a few students, I started a conversation actually in March break. I said, okay, I've sort of looked at and I've talked to other teachers, and this kid's pattern of not making it to the end of the semester is pretty clear. This is their system. And our school system is not doing anything to sort of make them change their system. But they are still trucking along and they're getting stuff done. But we know as the system stewards that the York Region District School Board is going to say school has to be done this way. And then it's just kind of like, see ya, it leaves. And then it's left to the teachers, the people actually on site in the room to try and figure out what does that mean. So we already kind of exist in this frame where there's an artificiality to timelines, deadlines, due dates within school. We've done so much work post-COVID to sort of recognize that the flexibility, compassion, understanding frame is of paramount importance over absolute deadlines. We've learned that feedback loops, conversations, observations, and products there's alternative ways to learn if the kid's doing stuff, demonstrating their learning. And we know that feedback is essential and more essential than the actual mark, right? The final mark. So I get this kind of headset and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to propose an idea it was in the department heads. So at that time I was the head of the alt ed department. I said, what would it look like? What could it look like? What would we have to do in order for a student right now? We know they're not going to finish out the last month, or we have a high suspicion that we will. So we're not going to make this offer to the student. Let's let them have their system. Let's see how they kind of fall out of the course. But what we're going to do is when we come back in September, we're going to offer for them to be able to just pick up with that last month of class. That's all they have to do. And we're going to figure out a way just for them to do that 1 month of class. And we're going to try to do it in a way that that doesn't take away from their social system and say, okay, because you didn't finish it then, now you have to give up your lunch. I said, is there a way for us to do this? Because I think what we'd be able to do is get some of those credit conveyances happening in a different way. Now, I'm not talking about student success. I'm not talking about credit recovery. Because credit recovery, the model right now, is kind of non-specific. It says, here are the expectations you didn't complete, broadly speaking. You can get this credit conveyed to you as long as you satisfy those expectations. And the fault, which is okay, until you get to, here's a random thing for you to complete that will just satisfy the expectations. So we've derailed whatever path of success that the kid has had. They say, now we're going to have you do something artificial and extraneous that isn't, sure, it completes the credit system, but it doesn't wire DSB system, but it doesn't really acknowledge the fact that you spent 3 months, you stuck it out, you got this done, and you in some ways just kind of put your learning on pause. So what I was proposing, I'm like, the kid would come back and actually just get access to materials that were the actual end of semester materials. They would still have access to the teacher in a way that they could talk to the teacher. Heck, for some students, it might even mean we re-enroll them in the class and they don't have to go to class until the last month of class, when that unit naturally occurs. Up to that point, we can code them into a study hall period. We connect them with a student success teacher or a CERT, or another compassionate, caring adult. One of these guys is not like the other guys, was the feeling I kind of had when I've suggested this. But this is my early warning, kind of like that, that my philosophy is changing. And I really do see and have accepted the fact that I don't see I don't see June or January as anything other than a month. And if a kid is not completing the credit, we need to ask why we care. Not do we care? Yes, we care. Why we care. And I think if we're siding on the side of the school board system, there's still some personal investigation to be done there. So yeah, I don't buy into it. And I generally speaking, I have the phrase of protect the weekend, but protect the weekend isn't protect the Saturday, Sunday. It's protect your wellness, protect your work, protect the concept of a weekend, which conceptually is kind of like you have more time for you versus time that you're giving away to other system things. And those systems as well could be your family, it could be your boss, it could be your religion. You're protecting your weekend, which is your time for you. But I'm okay. I'm okay with students not finishing their credits, because if I look at the system that we're in, completing on time doesn't really exist anymore.
Can we not take the protect the weekend mindset and apply it and call it protect the credit and teach kids how to maintain their focus and their health to do their job? Because in my opinion, look, their job is to go to school and learn. And we can debate what the learning is, the business of what school is, where it came from, what it's become. We can totally have conversations about that, which I welcome. But for me, this is, I guess, my perspective as a person and a teacher. They have a job to do. Their job is to go to school and to learn. And I love your question. Why is it important to me for them to get their credits? I'm not going to answer that question right now, but they have a job and they're not doing their job. Or at least I'm seeing kids who I'm working with, I guess, a group of kids that they just don't seem to care about their job. Why is that? Is their boss horrendous? Are the working conditions poor? There's all kinds of ways we can look at this. But based on what you just said, it would be cool if there was a protect the credit mentality where your wellness is important and it is key, but it's also important to balance out the learning that you have to experience in order at the end to successfully earn the credential that says that you completed a particular area of learning over a particular area of time. I think your protect the weekend idea, I like it. So why it would be awesome if we could apply that to other things. Protect the credit. Meaning you pace yourself, you do what you need to do, you check in with the people you need to check in. It doesn't take up your entire life because it shouldn't. But there's something there that, here's your job. Make sure you get it done. How do you do that? I don't know.
How do you feel? How do you feel when your principal tells you this is your job, do it? And I want to leave that as
Yeah.
it as a rhetorical for now. Just as a rhetorical for now. How do you feel? How do you feel? How does that make you feel when the person that actually does have legitimate power over you tells you this is your job? Now, I will say even it's interesting the way that some people tend to be only told that when it's investigative. So when I say people, I mean teachers, and when I say boss, I mean principal. So it tends to only be said when you're in a potentially disciplinary mode or you've effed up. You're told this is your job. Make sure it happens. It isn't often said in a sort of generative or productive way, as in, this is your job. This is awesome. Like, this is what you get to do. It isn't in a hopeful frame. So I want to just put on the table that often we are telling the kids this is your job without any real regard for what the value of completing that job is to the kid. Again, we're representing the system. So if the kid doesn't find value in completing that job or completing that task, and I think I'm moving more towards completing the task because I don't know how I feel about that phrase about it being their job. And I will say, saying it's somebody job by definition, you get paid for. And kids have been saying this for years, and we try and skirt around it like we're being smart. And we do say, but it's your job right now. So I think I want to, for me, I work to make sure that I am that I'm not calling it their job anymore, because I wouldn't do my job if I wasn't paid. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't do this work. I would be doing, like, I just wouldn't. It is a job, thus I get paid a certain amount to do it, right? But I want to go back to, like, if we unless we can include with clarity why a student understanding a kid's evaluation of completing that task and see it, let's put it at the end of the year. If there is zero value to the kid to complete a task, and sometimes they're not able to articulate it, maybe they're just saying, I don't care. Okay. I'm getting more to the space where I'm like, okay, I'm going to let it go, which is antithetical to doing student success. But it's antithetical to doing student success because student success, for the most part, is still based on a bureaucratic credit conveyance model. At some point, your school board will ask for the numbers, what percentage of credits are being recovered or conveyed through this student success model. Like, it comes back to credits all the time. The other things become too kind of loosey-goosey. Like, we can say student success based on, well, the kid is attending school now, student success. The kid has met their one caregiving individual, student success. The kid is working in the mornings now, and they have a counselor, so they're effectively doing student success or SAL, right? Or they're job seeking, or they're all these other sort of elements that have sort of loosened up what student success could be. I like the idea of pressing into this space, not to make my job any easier, but actually to put a little bit more, even more pressure on the system to untether itself from itself. There is no absolute deadline anymore on finishing that credit. Anything can be challenged. And I'm not suggesting an anarchy model here. But I'm also aware enough in the system where, co-op gets to do a thing that a lot of people don't know co-op gets to do, and SAL gets to do a thing and has resources that not a lot of people know that SAL has. Like, there's silos of student success that, if opened up widely, it would be very expensive for the school board. But we would have I would say, probably a far more comprehensive model, because teachers would be more aware of when a kid doesn't want to complete a credit. It's okay. It's actually okay. And even if they decide not to come back to it, that's okay too. If we're sort of can clearly say, are we supporting the evaluation that the student has on their stuff? Now, I get it. Some kids have no clue. They have no clue. They don't even know that they're operating in a deleterious fashion against their own interests. I get that. But those things tend not to be in the discussion around, we're in June, make sure you get this credit done. That's a different convo. Right? That's the re-engagement stuff that you were kind of involved with, the stuff that was sort of surrounded the kid in getting their work done.
If a kid, I've not seen much of this, and I don't know if it's because the students don't know how to but the human I'm working with doesn't know how to operate in this way or doesn't care. I don't know the answer to what I'm about to say. If a student I actually had this at the beginning of the year. I have a couple of if I'm going to go to and do my job, I'm not interested in having people treat me like shit all day because they don't want to do what it is that they're there to do. So we can talk about that more if you like, but that's what seems to happen. Kids are in the building and they're causing problems and they're treating people poorly and they're being disrespectful. I'm not interested in that, but I'm the one that has to deal with that because it's part of my job to a certain point. So that I'm not interested in. I'm not interested in being treated like garbage because somebody doesn't want to do the math from their math class and they're they're demonstrating that by acting a certain way. I'm not interested in that. So that for me there's a conflict there. The other thing though is when a student can verbalize and have a conversation with me personally about why they're not going to finish a credit or why they are walking away from it, I have a lot of respect for that. And I'm happy to work with people in that situation. I actually saw that at the beginning of the year when I was just starting this work and not knowing the student, but getting to know the student. They're not on my caseload. They just happen to be in room 208 when I was in room 208. And here's what happened. This student who's in grade 12 was taking an e-learn course. And so it was very early, right? September was very early, but at the beginning of October, the student said to me, "Yeah, I'm not I don't do that course anymore." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they said, I don't log in. I'm not doing it. I have no interest in doing it." And I'm like, "Well, why?" And they're like, "Well, because I thought it was going to be like this and this is what I thought it was going to be. It's not like that. I'm not going to put any time into that." And I said, "Okay." So then the adult part in me, the professional teacher was like, "Okay, well maybe you should go speak to your guidance counselor." Like just to leave it hanging. I'm like, that's not cool because you've got a teacher who's facilitating the course that's like, "Where's the kid?" And then they're activating all kinds of resources because they're concerned or you're just not doing your part and they don't know why. So they're going down the road of figuring out what's going on because you're not doing what it is you're supposed to be doing at this moment in time. Because that's what school is, whether we like it or not. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing right now. So, long story short, the student just said to me, like, "I have no interest in this course. I don't want to do it, but it got thrown into my schedule in the spring and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, okay. Like, and they were being, I could see them working on other courses. So it's not like they were at school and they just didn't care. They're like, these courses in front of me are the ones I want to focus on. That e-learn was kind of put in my schedule. Here were the reasons for it, but I don't agree with those reasons. And I have to have, so I'm like, you should probably talk to your guidance counselor and inform them of this. So at the very least, there's open communication. Because as an e-learn teacher right now, I got kids in my class that haven't done anything the last 2 months, but they're not communicating with me. So I'm emailing, I'm saying, "Hey, I'm so and so. There's all this stuff that's supposed to be done for this course, and you've not done any of it. So can what's going on?" And they don't even respond. So I'm like, we can't have a conversation. I can't do anything about that. Funny thing is, 2 weeks later, this kid's name ends up on a caseload sheet. I don't even know why I was looking at this caseload sheet, but when I saw the name and I saw all the concerns from all the people connected to this kid, I emailed somebody and said, "I had a conversation with this kid 2 weeks ago, and this is what they told me. This is what I told them to do." And then all of a sudden, the caseload sheet explodes with Roland has spoken to this student, and this is what the student said. So now it's like, okay, their student success teacher was activated. Go find the kid and find out what's going on. Because before it was Jimmy's dazed and confused. What are we going to do with Jimmy? And then I walk in. I'm like, "Well, I had a conversation with Jimmy about this 2 weeks ago by chance, but it wasn't recorded anywhere because I'm not." It was just one of those moments in room 208. Like the kids, this, I deal with kids problems all day, so I'm like, well, they're not on my caseload. I don't officially, I've not been told to be involved, so at this point I'm just having a conversation with a kid about school, and this is what they're telling me. But now I'm putting the pieces together because their name has popped up somewhere official where someone's supposed to do something with it. So in comes Roland, like, hey, I know I'm not involved in any of this, but this is what I learned 2 weeks ago. You, so now you've been informed. End of the day, this kid is now in credit recovery for this e-learn course because I guess they did enough to get a mark that was good enough to be in credit recovery. And they're doing it with under the supervision of a teacher who's helping them meet the expectations they missed, but doing it in a way that works for the kid at this time. So I tell that story because there was communication there, and there was let's honor the kid as best as we can because they're telling us what's happening. Whereas I see lots of kids that don't tell us anything, and I get paid to operate a certain way at work, and I'd like to continue to get paid, so I'm operating a certain way, but I'm saying that the kids are not meeting me where they need to for me to be informed on what to do to help them manage a situation based on me being paid. So at the end of this, I say, as you know, I love All Dead. I'm into helping kids learn. But in the system I work in and the expectations placed on me, these kids are there to do something. And if they're not going to do it and they're going to cause me problems at the same time, then I got a problem with that. Because I don't go to work every day to deal with situations where I feel other people need to step in but won't. And I'm taking all the heat for that. I'm not interested in that. That's not my job description. So I hear what you're saying. If kids, for me, were like calm and articulate about it, then I'm like, hey, let's see what I can do here to make your day hanging out with me a little bit more pleasant because I'm not interested in fighting with you. But I'm seeing that that's the minority of kids who are articulate and have reasons that you're like, well, I can't really argue with that. It's sound, and parents are aware and they're okay with things. It's the kids who are coming and causing chaos and getting in the way of other people's learning and other people's enjoyment of life that I have a problem with. And they land in our lap because we're the teacher. So I hear you. I've got conditions. I've got conditions. If a kid can do A, B, C, and D and they don't want to do their schoolwork, I'm good with it. But if you don't meet those conditions, I have a problem. And I'm going to deal with my problem as best as I can because I don't want a problem. Rochelle says she likes what I had to say about students need to be taught to persevere. And it needs to start with people in elementary school and be supported by parents. This goes to what Chris was saying. Some parents don't care. I've talked to parents that tell me, sorry, there's nothing I can do. This is how they act at school. There's nothing I can do. I talk to them, but they don't change. And I say, okay, um, what can I do? This is what I'll try to do. Man, you know, as I sit here and tell you, I don't want to be frustrated at work. It's a selfish perspective, but I'd like to continue to keep my mental health intact. But I do feel for these kids. And so I have built relationship with kids that go to school and do nothing all day. And I do understand that there's layers and I get all that. I really do. And at the end of the day for me, I just say to the kid, I'm here to support you. I'm not interested in problems. So don't cause me too many of them. And I'm happy to do what I can with you in real time to help. But when you come into my world and you start causing flack for me, and I'm open to hearing what you have to say and what you're going through, and you're still blocking me out and you're causing problems, I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. And it's funny because I'm a newbie in my job, but the newbie in me is the experienced 24-year veteran is not letting the newbie part take over. No. I'm not ignoring the work I've done to arrive here. And I've proven to myself that I'm more than willing to be open and to continue learning and to show humility and compassion all day long. So I'm okay to stick with my experience says this. So there are some things happening now that are not negotiable for me, even though I'm a newbie. Because as a newbie, I'm doing everything I can to learn every day. But there are some things where I'm just going to say, not my problem, or I'm not dealing with this. See you later. It's funny. There are some, I'm starting to find in my world of flexibility that there are certain things that I'm just not interested in being flexible with. One of those is being treated like a piece of shit all day because a kid is somewhere they don't want to be. I'm not interested. So let's find a way to be civil to each other. And if we can't do that, then I'm moving you away from me. You're not going to be with me for that. That's my talk. I'm not going to call it the T word. That's my position on that. And I feel, again, I'm going to say, my wife hates it when I do this, when I repeat myself, but I think I do it to soothe myself. I'm in a comfortable place of I'm bending over backwards to help people. That I get paid to do that, I think, in this role. But there are certain things I'm not going to budge on.
I that phrase of bending over backwards is problematic for me.
I know it is for you, but for me, it makes me feel I can sleep at night knowing that. Look, there's nothing worse than walking into a space and being like, "This is who I am. This is how I operate," and people are like, "Well,
I
are
think I
you
just want to
open?"
understand though. I want to understand how are you what's the criteria? And this is what I would say to anyone else because I've had I have to make a note because there's something else I want to go back to. Let me just write this down. Okay. So bending over backwards, when someone says that relative to a task, what that means is that they're going beyond the scope of the actual task. If you're bending over backwards, I would say if you're saying this, then you're saying that you are starting to use personal resources that are not a part of the job description. That's how I kind of start by defining it. So I start with a problematic definition of that because often when I hear my colleagues say that, all they're doing is using the actual tools that we're expected to use. They just might not be very good at using them, but they look at that effort that they're exerting as over the top too much for them. If the tools that we have in education are too much for you, then I think that's some personal work that you need to do to figure out how do you just kind of get to a baseline of expectation of the job. And if you can't meet the baseline, break that down, parse it out, figure it out. Because where you started here, what Rochelle started, this is the train of thought, but I have to start at a different, I have to start at the bar car. Michelle making a reference to perseverance. I might say, if you're bending over backwards, is there like I start to hear in that you're at your breaking point, or you might be doing too much, or it might be problematic. I could say, well, how do you persevere through that? How are you going to persevere through that? How have you learned to persevere through this discomfort of bending over backwards? The teachers that are suggesting bending over backwards in order to deliver programming, pedagogy, support, structures, whatever, I think we still have to say if you're saying that, there's an element of this that either isn't a part of your job as you understand it, or it's beyond you. Like you can't get to the things that are a part of your job. I think we have to accept that that's a possibility for the students too. that they feel in a certain degree that they're bending over backwards in order to satisfy a system that they'll just feel they never can satisfy. So I kind of want to just kind of put that there because I think and you can drop into, of course, like when you say bending over backwards, what is it that you're saying? Because it's a euphemism. So you might be, I don't know, teaching yoga to the kids, and I'm bending over backwards would mean completely something different, right? But for you, I am curious to hear what you're saying about the bending over backwards. Let me circle back to the perseverance. And I forget if Rochelle said they have to be taught how to persevere. Like I was saying, they need to be taught to persevere. That statement, the first statement, I put that back in the day during COVID. I was populating my fossil list. And yes, of course, there are things that we say within education that are they are the granite foundational ideals of education. And in our board, I mean, we have character matters, character traits, student skills, and perseverance is on that list. But whenever it's bluntly said, just like bending over backwards, I'm starting to now pause on that and say, please tell me two things. In what ways are you teaching perseverance? So what opportunities are you using to model perseverance? How are you breaking it down into criteria for the students to learn about perseverance? And I think we really have to start by saying that to learn about it and to do it. Learn about it is like a 60-minute lesson. The learning to do it is a lifelong pursuit. And I think often what we're doing is we're sort of saying to ourselves, because we teach about perseverance, and maybe we create context where the kids can't persevere, that we think it's a one and done. But I would argue that students are learning perseverance just in zones that we don't agree with. They're learning perseverance because their home life sucks. They're learning perseverance because they have a job outside of school. They're learning perseverance because their friend circle doesn't treat them very well or it's inconsistent. So they are persevering. They do know about and have learned to persevere. What they don't have is the school version of it, which is complete the credit, which is the starting point. When we talk about perseverance, it's credit conveyance. It's in the same thing. Yes, perseverance is, can you sort of work through tough things? Yes, perseverance is, can you sort of tolerate a little bit of discomfort in a moment in a conversation? Yes, that's perseverance too. But my God, good luck data tracking that. So it's a big, unruly kind of a thing in a dark room that we have their hand on and we say, you're persevering, good. It feels like you're doing it. I taught you about it. So bending over backwards, yes. Learning about, when we say teach, I think we have to stop saying teach. We're not teaching perseverance. We are learning about it. There's the collective thing. We're learning about learning about it. And then we're learning how to, which is a far longer process. And I would argue that how students are learning to persevere outside of the classroom, we need to have a better handle on that. We have to have a better understanding. And the challenge there is that the students are never, ever, ever, they don't have to ever tell us anything about their personal life. We have no rule that says a kid has to open up and actually explain the what or the why behind their behavior. We have a model that sort of starts from enforcement and compelling to say, you must tell me why it is that you're not getting this thing done. You must tell me why it is that you're having this behavior. Dealing in the thing that's just in front of you, can be a very short process, but sometimes it's the most enriching. The fact that a student isn't persevering, I think we have to do full stop and say, acknowledge they're not persevering according to our criteria of expectation in the school. Now that can cause problems, like you said. If the kid isn't purposefully using the time of the school, okay, let's deal directly with that. If the kid is causing a ruckus in your class, let's deal directly with that. But I like this. I would actually put, having to learn perseverance, I would put that on the fossil list. For me, they would be on my fossil list. So Rochelle, Gary, back during COVID, I think I still have it. I started what was it? Full of shit. Full of shit sayings, idioms, and language. Something like that. Yeah, fossil list or fossil fuel, I was calling it. And it was just became kind of cheeky things that I think we have to make sure that we're not just saying it and assuming that it's a thing that everyone kind of understands what we're talking about. My experience forces my brain to kind of go, I have information right now, just like where I began this. I have information right now that teacher A doesn't have, teacher B doesn't have. And of course, they could say the same thing about me. I don't have all the information. But in some cases, when these things are popped up, I'm like, okay, that's your version of it. I get it. That's your version of I get it. But I have another piece that could kind of harmonize those two disparate opinions. So yeah, learning how to persevere, sure. Expecting someone to persevere, and bending over backwards. I want to know what that means to you. What does that mean when you say that? See, this is the danger of getting to the hour long, right? This is the danger. It's been a while. I don't know if Rochelle or Gary actually experienced us piercing through the hour on the podcast.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Bending over backwards.
Bending over backwards, I would say a short answer would be putting up with stuff that nobody else is interested in putting up with. Trying to negotiate a way around a situation. All this is based on the idea of school. So let's start there, right? This is all based on the fact that for me, the kid has to be in this building between this time and this time because that's what our society says that they have to do. Whether we agree with it or not, we're living in that system. I'm in that system and I'm getting paid in that system. So that's where I start. You're supposed to be here. If you don't want to be, that's a decision you make on your own with whoever. But you're here and I'm here. For whatever reason, we are working together at the moment. Then you get into, and you're right, they don't have to tell me anything about their personal life. They do not have to. But they land in front of me, and somebody has essentially said, I'm done with this. It's your turn to work with this, whatever this is. I'm like, awesome. What's going on, Jimmy? What brings you to me today, Jimmy? Or why does Mr. Clough need me to be working with you right now, Jimmy? And then that's always the starting point, and we see where it goes. The kid may be perceived by me as being rude, obnoxious, disrespectful, not willing to assist me in my duty, which I guess they don't have to, but then I don't have to deal with it either. And when I say that, that's a very black and white approach. But sometimes when you see patterns, when I see patterns, I go to black and white because I'm like, hey, nobody's helping me here in the gray. So I'm just going to switch colors. Bro, this is a hard question for me to answer because as I'm answering you, there's a lot of personal opinion, baggage, experience that comes into who I am standing in front of that kid working in the building. The bending over backwards is I guess, using my personal resources and my experience working with situations that are not ideal or not, people aren't just complying with what you're asking them to do. I'm digging deep and looking for ways for innovation, for creativity on how to help the person in front of me find a way to comply. Now, as I think I mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, if they're not being disrespectful, rude, mean, then I'm happy to land in a space where it's decided that they're just not going to do anything at this moment in time. I guess I end with I'm okay with having a civil conversation because really, I'm not going to force somebody to do something they don't want to do. But there should be a consequence, or else then nobody's going to do anything and they're just going to be in my face all day doing nothing. I mean, I dole out some consequences, but they're not, they I don't see any of the consequences I dole out as being long-term effective in terms of having a student change their behavior or their opinion. I'm just like, well, whose job is it? This is what I'm thinking. Whose job is it to deal with them next? Because they're clearly not, nothing I'm doing is working. And again, like I said, I've been happy to entertain situations where people are civil and we can have a great conversation. I'm not looking to change minds. I'm looking for, you're here right now. You're here right now, and there are expectations for you to be here right now. So, how do you want to meet those expectations? And if you don't agree with those expectations, how do you want to move forward so that you're doing something that's, I guess, pro you and not negative everybody else? Because that just causes more problems. And I'm okay to deal with problems as long as they meet my requirements, which are, you're not going to cause me bodily harm or anybody else, I guess. Bending over backwards. Other people seem to not want to dig in. And you and I both know that there's an invisible, there are unspoken conditions in schools, because if we all followed the rule book the way that it is written, then nobody's going to be in class, because we don't have to be disrespected all day long. There are rules about this, but nobody, I find, not enough people take them seriously, and there are no consequences for the students. Yeah, I could really, there's so many avenues that I could discuss, I could bring up, I would want answers to, but I'm not going to, just because we would talk forever. Kinds
I'm
of
I'm actively protecting, withdrawing, and removing the school board's access to my personal resources. And that is my way of ensuring that in the case when I am, well, that's the way ensuring that I have choice, flat out. I would never personally use the word bending over backwards anymore. I don't know if I ever said it, but I absolutely would not. One of the things I've come to learn is that there is no refreshment from the board on my personal resources. Zero. Zero. So the resources that are of most value to me at my core, the school board cannot refresh those. They cannot reset them. They cannot, for me, support my triage of that depletion. When it's gone, it's gone. And then I have to do personal work away from work to rest, recharge, and recalibrate. The school board can't do it for me. So, to that end, for me to say that I'm bending over backwards, what it actually means is that I'm operating in a way in school that's deleterious, painful, and injurious to me, because I'm doing things in school that are entirely dependent on me doing things that are not a part of the job description. Now, what I do really enjoy doing is that when I notice this implied, as you said, onus is on me to operate in the gray, I bring people into the conversation and I say, we can't operate like this. We can't operate like this. We can't keep saying that the students need to persevere unless we are quite clear and unified on what that looks like to support the kids' learning of that. Because right now, teaching the kid to persevere is me using up my lunchtime to sit with them and have one-to-one counseling sessions multiple times a week. This can't come out of my pocket. Now, this is a big kind of bristly factor. And I can remember saying to Tina Zita back in the day, Rochelle, Gary, Tina Zita, find them on Instagram. They're a teacher librarian. They're a fascinating, creative teacher, really cool person. You can find them on Insta. You see what they're posting up. If you're interested in developing your use of technologies, even yet to say developing your use of technology in the classroom, which is such a dated idea, right? You don't see a lot of people still actively doing those sessions of let's develop our use of technology in the classroom. It's become the water that we swim in. But anyways, I was in a book club with Tina Zita. I forget the book. And that's how learning goes, right? I just remember how I felt talking about this topic. But the topic was around, the discussion is the structure of your job replenishing your personal resources at the same rate that you are putting them out? And if it isn't, I would suggest you got to make change. And I would also say that if you're willing to even say the words, you are not going to bend over backwards, then I would argue that there's something in your pedagogy or your job as you feel it, where you are being asked to do things that you shouldn't, or you're being asked to give up something that you would rather protect, or you feel like there's some precariousness to your job that isn't clearly being addressed. If you are bending over backwards, it is not a comfortable position. Those words to me are quite powerful. They're powerful when I hear a colleague say that. But I like to stay in the conversation and say, okay, so what's the work now? If we are not going to bend over backwards, how would that affect your day? How would that change the quality of your work? What would be noticed, questioned, and you may feel confronted because you have to, you may want to say, I'm not bending over backwards anymore. But how will you deal with other people's dashed expectations? And I think that's a really cool and tricky conversation to be in. But I feel like it just unfolds origami-like into another structure that, like, you don't get to a nice flat piece of paper. At best, you get to a piece of paper that still is wrinkled. But at least you can see the whole map. Bending over backwards, man. Like, I feel like that is if you stay too long in that state, I'm sorry. That's horrible. That's horrible. If that is, show me someone that is constantly in that active state of being, bending over backwards, and I'll show you a human that is on their way out the door at some point, or they're barely dragging themselves in the door in the morning. That's going to be a depleted individual, maybe in small bites, but eventually, right? If they ain't being nourished, if they're not nourishing themselves, they feel like they can't get to the regenerative state. Oh, they're a teacher that are sending the kids down to every single day in the student success room. They're done bending over backwards. Personally, I kind of like trying to bend over backwards. I wish I could. I like that flex. I like that feel. I think of my cat, Ollie. I pick him up under his armpits, and he's kind of like, and then I hold him there long enough. He's like, any cat lovers in the room, maybe you know this too. Your cat will just do this in your arms, and the look on their face is so glorious. They're just happy, like what you're doing right now, the chair yoga, right? But you hold your cat, like, oh, doody doody do. Can't do it to Hazel; she's too big, my dog. But my cat, he looks at me, he's like, stop it, and he's like, oh, look at what you made me do. And then there's a yawn, and they just stretch right out. you see his paws go like this, and then he's just like this. If you can get to that from bending over backwards, it's a release, it's a flex, it's a reminder of your humanity and your sort of like how far you can go and your tolerance is fantastic. But if it's only depletion, oh shit, man. Let's do some work. Let's help that person out.
It's good. That's good.
Any chatter in the room?
None.
Come on.
No chatter.
Come on. Yeah.
So was there you wrote something down? Maybe?
It was the circle by. I said follow up, and I drew a circle around perseverance.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I got there. You
Good.
got me a better way to come at it when you said the bending over backwards.
I'm happy that I could assist.
Hey, it's a beautiful thing.
So is that it for today?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling good about our conversation today.
I think going into, I think it's the great thing, if you do a challenge of practice, June is a great month to do it. It's a great month to do it because everyone's going to be telling themselves, I don't have enough effing time to do anything new. I am bending over backwards. I'm at the end of my rope. That's it. If somebody does one more, like we're all a little heightened. We're all a little heightened. But it's the Goggins moment. It's the Goggins moment. If you can find a way to actually, what's the word? It's a word like ignite something. It's not ignite, but capitalize. Flip the script on that energy that feels like it's pressing you down. And is there a springboard out of it? Because I would argue every single time, if you can find something cool and of value to expand your thinking in June, you will appreciate it in September. Now, what we often say about this is, as you're shutting down your classroom, the passive version of what I'm talking about is making sure your bulletin boards are clean, making sure you're filing all those papers that are on your desk. I'm not talking about storage. I'm talking about propulsion, which is different. Sure, get all that shit cleaned up. Oh my God, that coffee cup's been sitting in the corner of my classroom for weeks. I'm going to wash it. That's not propulsion. That's just bureaucracy. Propulsion would be try to do a thing right now that even though it's difficult and you don't think you have any time to do it, you actually do. Find a little bit of time, create something that will actually spark something, like you set something on fire that will still be burning in September. Because June is an untapped month in general. We do get very swept up in just trying to make it across the finish line. And when I tell people there's no finish line, you just keep on running. They're like, I hate you. I think I even do a drawing. You have the drawing still. I have a drawing because I went back through my Flickr feed and I actually, this time at some point, I should see if I can freaking find it. Because I actually had the audacity to do a drawing. I don't know if it'll let me do it, but I'll describe it as I find it. I had the audacity to do a drawing about the end of the school year, where my drawing is a finish line on a friggin' cliff, bro. On a cliff. Come on. Talk about nihilistic. My God, like that is like beyond horrible. If that's how I'm actually thinking about the end of I'm just scrolling through here and I'll put it up on the screen because I'm pretty sure I did it. There's a November picture. Oh my God. You ready? I don't know. Let's see if I can present my screen. Let me present my screen.
Hopefully.
Share screen. I want to look at this picture. This was August. So this is how I perceived August.
Oh, okay. I'm going to put it up here. Okay.
Yeah. Look at my perception back in 2020. Now, let's take note of the date. 2020, August 29. We were all like, what the blank, right?
Right. Yeah.
What the blank. Look at what I dared to do for season 3, episode 45. Summer school, baby. We're running along a nice meadow, nice green fields, windy road. Yay, finish line. Oh! Come on, Clough. Do better. I love that. I have that because my thinking has expanded, right? My thinking has expanded. If you can find something to do that will sort of like explode you, propel you when you land back in September, June is an untapped month. I really think it is because everyone's in survival mode. I get it. Everyone's in survival mode. But stop marketing and branding survival because that type of self-talk is not useful. It's soothing. It can be soothing, but you say it too many times and it's like too much. It's like too much coffee. It gets sour. I know by my 4th coffee, I tell myself I love coffee. By my 4th one in the day, I'm like, go brush my teeth. That's propulsion. That's your body saying, stop drinking coffee, do something different. You don't like that feeling? Stop doing it. You don't like the feeling of being pressed down in June? Stop doing it. The system will do it, but find a different way to do it. And I know. I'm being an ass. Some of the things I'm saying is like, I get it. It can be an impossibility. But I also like being the ass that kind of reminds us that there are different ways to think about this. I've done this job long enough to know my own patterns. I'll tell you how I exemplified this. Just one last story. So right now I'm trying to get, I am right now the student council teacher lead. When I came on, I was coming in to help somebody else that was the lead. That person took a leave. So I'm standing, I'm like, okay, I'm going to steer the boat to the end of the year, but I knew that I'm not going to continue. It has direct impact on me being able to protect my weekend because I have to stay after school and I have rehearsal and performance and plays. And, like that's my passion. So I'm going to do my job, do it well enough that it's not going to be, I can get it all done between the bells as best as possible. And I'm at about a 95% efficiency there. But I hustle and I get it all done. I can go do my plays. I will not stay after school except for the mandatory things that I have to come back for because I am intentionally using that time in a way that propels me into the second half of my life when I retire. I'm standing in the hallway and there's a staff member that came on to support me. They've kind of been there in bits and pieces. They haven't been there that much, but they're the ones that are sort of putting it out to other teachers saying, hey, come on, like, have you heard? This is great. Clough's got it all organized. Like it's what do they call it? What they call that when you have the key to the house and you can just kind of open it and go, that mindset, like they say you sell a house, you buy a house. It's just, you got the key, you open it up and you go. Like it's not a fixer upper, it's ready to go. I forget what that, there's a term in sort of like sales that it's good to go. We sometimes will say plug and play if we're talking about technology, but it's good to go. You take one stop, away you go. It's set up like that. There you go. There's the keys. Go for it. I don't know where these two teachers are. This one educator talking to these two other teachers. I actually don't know where their mindset. I've heard rumors that some people may take it over. No one's shown up in a meeting yet. No one's come and talked to me directly. Both of them in different ways said, yes, but I'm so loaded up right now. I don't think I can take on another thing. And they're kind of doing the wavy hands. And I said, okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for the conversation. But I also said, but I'm going to call bullshit on that. And here's why I'm going to call it bullshit. Please, no offense taken. I'm going to call bullshit on that because all of us know that this feeling right now is temporary. This discomfort right now is temporary. For some, maybe not, but for the most part, that stress that you're feeling in June is temporary. You wrap up the year, you're like, yay, maybe do summer school, but you get through 5-6 years of teaching, you realize that June is just, it's going to come, whether you work or don't work. Calendars work that way. So you're going to get to the end of the year. You're going to move on, and then you're going to do another year. This is the long game, the cycle. You get a couple months off where you might have more time for yourself. You're going to come back, and you're going to have to give more time to the system. It's how it works. This is the water we swim in. So I said, I call bullshit on that. And I call bullshit because this feeling is temporary. You could show up at a meeting just to get a further idea. And I know for a fact that if you make the decision over the summer and you decide to jump on in September, if you do decide to jump on in September, you're going to be behind the ball because you didn't prime yourself enough. And I'm thinking to myself, and you're going to be coming to me way too much, asking me questions that could be answered right now. So first I said, this is temporary. I said, second, I've been doing this job long enough that often when I make the decisions like that in June, I regret them. If there's a kind of a cooler, interesting opportunity that I say to myself, no, I can't entertain this cooler, interesting opportunity right now because I am overwhelmed. And I get it. Deal with your overwhelmed side, but also recognize at the same time, your brain is overprotecting you at this point. Cortisol does that. It extends your super shield to make sure that it has an early warning system that sometimes isn't reading right. It's just like a barking dog. It's meant to keep you off the property. You get close enough, the dog's like, okay, barking didn't work. That's what cortisol does to us. So I know enough about that the fact that if you don't check it now, you will not have the right information to make a better decision later. So June, I think it's an underused month. It shouldn't just be used, I think, for putting stuff back in file folders and washing that coffee cup. I would say you want to rebrand and make June into something exciting. Use it as your vision board for the next year. Find a way to sort of start thinking about what's a cool thing next that you could be working on. Yeah, sure. Do your planning. Yeah, sure. Organize your Google Drive, whatever the hell you got to do just to feel like you've sort of effectively satisfied the bureaucracy of the job. But take on a propulsion project, something that you feel like will launch you into September. IMO. IMHO, because I'll put humble opinion on the end there. My humble opinion. I was talking like the kids did 10 days ago. I know we don't do that anymore.
Good stuff. That's a good way to end. What can you do this month to propel you into September? I like that, and I'll end with the notion that yesterday at our PD day, I engaged in some of that, in that concept. I actually have something that's going to help me get through this month because, as you know, and as I said somewhere earlier in this podcast, I'm done. I'm excited to have this month end, but I don't want to fast forward time, but I am looking forward to the end of this month. Having said that, I'm living in the gray. I do have something that I picked up yesterday that's going to propel me into September. And as you know, and as I've said before, June is my Friday. And I want to make sure when I come into work on Monday, things are the way that I like them so I can jump right in and go and I can deal with whatever unexpected things come my way. So what is expected will be ready to rock. And then what is unexpected, I cannot control and will come my way. But I will feel good when I walk in on Monday knowing that on Friday, I didn't just let it go. I was like, no, I operate a certain way in order to set me up nicely, as nice as I can for my Monday. And in this case, June is my Friday, September is my Monday.
What did they say? What was that? What's that Stoic thing? We haven't digged down into Stoicism too much. That luck is when preparedness meets opportunity.
Yes.
I like that.
I've experienced enough of it to say that it's relatively accurate.
I would say for me, high percentage of accuracy. Surprising but always surprising to me. To the point I've told you the newish phrase between myself and any colleague that I work with in my particular community classroom. I've now embodied this as a confident statement by saying, this is what we've trained for, or this is what we train for. No matter how hard this moment is, this moment right now that we're going through, this opportunity, this thing that we're learning, this thing that we're struggling, this is the reason why we train the way we do. And I love that. That makes me feel better when I'm not feeling better.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. We done?
We're done. Gary, Rochelle, and anybody else who joined us, thanks for hanging out for a little bit
Mhm.
as we broke the 1 hour mold, and we're actually at 129.55. So I'm going to shut her down.
We did
This
well.
this was season 8, episode 32, number 339 of the Decoded Podcast. Have a good one, Chris, and everybody else.
Ciao, buddy. Peace.